I found out why my husband really married me when I confronted him with the evidence. The night I opened that hidden folder on my husband's laptop, my whole marriage shattered. Every smile, every "I love you," every promise, suddenly a lie. I thought he married me for love. But the evidence said otherwise. My name is Laney Foster, and I'm 27 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened just 6 months ago, but it feels like a lifetime. This is the story of how I discovered that my entire marriage was a lie, and how I got the most satisfying revenge against the people who tried to destroy my life. I always believed my husband, Alex Hunter, married me for love. We had the picture-perfect life, a nice house in suburbia, steady jobs, and late-night laughter over terrible movies. For 3 years, I lived in this beautiful bubble, thinking I was the luckiest woman alive. But that Tuesday evening changed everything. I was searching for our tax documents on his laptop when I noticed a folder labeled "Personal, Confidential." My finger hovered over it. Alex had never hidden anything from me before. At least, I thought he hadn't. Curiosity won. I clicked it open, and what I saw inside froze my blood. Email after email filled the screen, conversations between Alex and someone I didn't recognize. The subject lines made my stomach drop: target acquisition update, asset timeline, inheritance status. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the messages. They weren't love letters. They were business transactions. And somehow, I was the product being sold. The emails painted a picture I couldn't understand. Words like target, inheritance, and projected assets kept appearing next to my name. My heart pounded so loud I was sure the neighbors could hear it. One email made me physically sick. Phase 1 complete. Marriage secured. Laney suspects nothing. Inheritance paperwork in progress. Estimate $2.3 million in company shares plus real estate assets. I read it 3 times, hoping I was misunderstanding. But there it was, in black and white. My husband had married me for money. Money I didn't even know I had. The man writing back was someone named James Mitchell. His responses were cold and calculated: excellent work. Maintain emotional connection until transfer complete. Any signs of suspicion? Alex's reply made my soul crack: none. She's completely devoted. This will be easier than we thought. I slammed the laptop shut, my whole body shaking. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of what I thought was pure love, and I was just a mark in some elaborate con game. The worst part? I had no idea what inheritance they were talking about. My father had died when I was young, and my mother never mentioned any significant assets. What did Alex know that I didn't? Then I remembered something that made my blood run cold: that letter from a law firm I'd thrown away months ago, thinking it was junk mail. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time Alex rolled over or made a sound, I froze, terrified he'd somehow know I'd discovered his secret. By morning, dark circles ringed my eyes, and my hands still shook when I poured coffee. "You okay, babe?" Alex asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. His touch, which used to feel like home, now felt like poison spreading through my veins. "Just tired," I managed to say, forcing my voice to sound normal. Over breakfast, I studied his face. How had I missed the calculating look in his eyes? The way his smile never quite reached them? Had I been that blind to the signs? After he left for work, I called in sick and spent the day researching my father's estate. I drove to the law office whose letter I'd dismissed, my hands shaking as I walked through their doors. What I found shocked me. My father had owned shares in a tech company that had recently gone public. Those shares, now worth millions, were set to transfer to me on my 28th birthday, which was next month. We tried contacting you several times, the lawyer, Mr. Anderson, explained. Your cousin Emily gave us your address when we couldn't reach you. Emily. My stomach dropped. My own cousin knew about this inheritance before I did. A prenuptial agreement draft hidden in another folder on Alex's laptop confirmed my worst fears. It outlined how Alex would gain control of my inheritance through our marriage. My signature was forged at the bottom. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. Not only had he married me for money, but my own family had helped set me up. That evening, Alex came home with roses and my favorite takeout from the Italian place downtown. Just because I love you, he said, kissing my forehead with the same lips that had probably planned my financial destruction. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the flowers in his face and demand answers. Instead, I smiled and thanked him, playing the role of the loving, clueless wife he expected. You're the best husband ever, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. His grin widened. Anything for my beautiful wife. We're going to have such an amazing future together. The irony wasn't lost on me. He was celebrating our future while planning to steal mine. Oh, by the way, Alex said casually, I thought we'd invite Emily over for dinner this weekend. Family's important, right? My blood turned to ice. Emily. He wanted to bring my backstabbing cousin into our home, probably to celebrate their upcoming victory together. That sounds perfect, I forced myself to say, my voice barely steady. That night, as he slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling and planned my next move. I needed proof, real, undeniable evidence of his betrayal. But more importantly, I needed to understand how deep this conspiracy went. One thing was clear, I couldn't confront him yet. If Alex knew I was onto him, he might accelerate whatever timeline he was working with. I had to be smarter than him, and that meant playing his own game better than he did. The naive Laney who trusted blindly was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone determined to fight back. The next day, I drove to see my childhood friend, Casey Palmer, the only person I could trust with something this big. Casey had always been the suspicious type, the one who saw through people's fake smiles and hidden agendas. When I told her what I'd found, her face went pale. Laney, this sounds like a long-term con. How long did you two date before getting married? 6 months, I admitted, feeling stupid for the first time about our whirlwind romance. Classic, Casey said, shaking her head. Long enough to seem real, short enough to avoid deep scrutiny. This guy is a professional. She urged me to gather more evidence before making any moves. You need his voice, his words, something he can't deny in court. Because honey, this isn't just about divorce, this is fraud. That afternoon, I bought a small digital recorder from an electronics store, paying cash to avoid any paper trail. I felt like a spy, which was ridiculous because I was just trying to protect myself from my own husband. That evening, I carefully placed the recorder in Alex's home office, tucked behind some books where he'd never notice it. My hands shook as I positioned it, but I knew this was necessary. For the first time since discovering his betrayal, I felt like I was taking control instead of just reacting. The first recording nearly destroyed me. I listened to it the next day while Alex was at work, and I had to pause it several times to compose myself. His voice, the same voice that whispered sweet things in my ear at night, was cold and calculating. The inheritance transfer is scheduled for next month. I need you to have the offshore accounts ready. Once the money hits, we move it immediately. The person on the other end, James Mitchell, replied, What about Laney? She's going to notice millions disappearing from her accounts. Alex's laugh was cruel. By then, I'll be long gone. She'll wake up one morning to divorce papers and empty bank accounts. Though honestly, I almost feel bad. She's so trusting, so naive. It's almost too easy. I had to run to the bathroom to vomit. 3 years of marriage, and he'd been planning to rob me blind and disappear. Every anniversary dinner, every birthday gift, every time he said he loved me, it was all just part of his performance. But beneath the devastation, something else grew: rage. Pure, white-hot fury that this man thought he could use me and throw me away. He had no idea who he was really dealing with. I needed to see who this James Mitchell was. The following Friday, when Alex said he had a late work meeting, I followed him. My heart hammered as I trailed his car through downtown traffic, staying far enough back to avoid detection. He parked outside Marconi's, an upscale restaurant I could never afford on my teacher's salary. Through the window, I watched him greet a man in an expensive suit, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of confident posture that screamed money. They shook hands like old business partners, not like friends. I took photos from my car, zooming in as much as possible. James Mitchell looked exactly like what I'd imagined, a smooth criminal in a $1,000 suit. I watched them for an hour, studying their body language. They weren't emotional or excited. This was just business to them. My life, my heart, my future, all just numbers on a spreadsheet. When they stood to leave, James handed Alex a manila envelope. Even from a distance, I could see Alex's satisfied smile as he tucked it into his jacket. Whatever was in that envelope, it was another piece of their plan to destroy me. As I drove home, I realized I wasn't just angry anymore. I was determined. They thought I was weak, naive, easy prey. But when I found that plane ticket, I realized Alex never planned to take me with him. The photos I'd taken became my obsession. I printed them out and studied every detail, trying to read their lips, analyzing their expressions. But I needed more than photos. I needed their actual conversation. That weekend, Alex was unusually affectionate. He suggested we go house hunting, talking about our bright future, and how we'd soon be able to afford the home of our dreams. "Won't it be amazing when we don't have to worry about money anymore?" he said, stroking my hair as we cuddled on the couch. I forced myself to smile and nod, playing the part of the excited wife. "How do you think that'll happen?" His hesitation was barely noticeable, but I caught it. "Oh, you know, promotions, investments, good planning. Things have a way of working out for people who are patient." Patient. Like he'd been patient for 3 years, waiting for my inheritance to mature like fruit on a tree. Speaking of planning, Alex said casually, "Emily called. She's excited about dinner tomorrow night. She mentioned something about family finances." My blood chilled. Emily was already coordinating with him, probably feeding him information about my reaction to discovering the inheritance. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Instead, I sat in the dark living room, planning my counterattack. I'd been a victim long enough. It was time to become the hunter instead of the prey. The scared woman who discovered those emails was evolving into someone much more dangerous. Alex started dropping stranger hints about our financial future. At dinner, he'd mention expensive vacations we'd take soon. He showed me luxury car advertisements, saying we'd be able to afford one before we know it. "Isn't it crazy how life can change overnight?" he said one evening, scrolling through real estate listings for mansions. "One day you're struggling, the next you're set for life." I wanted to ask him exactly what he meant, but I bit my tongue. Instead, I smiled and agreed, playing the role of the naive wife who had no idea her husband was planning to rob her. The inheritance paperwork was moving through legal channels faster than expected. Mr. Anderson called to tell me the shares would transfer to my account within 2 weeks instead of next month. I didn't tell Alex about the accelerated timeline. If he thought he had more time, maybe he'd get sloppy, give me more evidence to use against him. Emily came for dinner that night, and I watched her carefully. She hugged me too long, asked too many questions about my future plans, and kept glancing at Alex with barely concealed excitement. "You two are so lucky to have each other," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Alex is such a catch. Smart with money too." That evening, I heard him on the phone in his office. "Change of plans. It's happening sooner than expected. Make sure everything's ready on your end." My blood ran cold. Ready for what, exactly? And how much did this James Mitchell person know about me? I was running out of time, but I was also getting closer to the truth. One night, I pretended to be asleep and listened as Alex practiced in the bathroom mirror. Through the thin door, I could hear him rehearsing what sounded like a speech. "Laney, darling, I know this is sudden, but I've been offered an incredible opportunity overseas. We'd have to leave immediately, but it would set us up for life." He paused, then continued, "The company is handling all the financial transfers, so you don't need to worry about the logistics. Just trust me." My stomach dropped. This was his exit strategy. He was going to convince me to let him handle my inheritance, probably by making it seem like an exciting adventure. Then he'd disappear with everything, leaving me broke and heartbroken in a foreign country. When he noticed me stirring, he quickly returned to bed, wrapping his arms around me like nothing had happened. "Sweet dreams, beautiful," he whispered in my ear. But there was nothing sweet about my dreams anymore. They were filled with nightmares of waking up alone in an empty house, with empty bank accounts and a shattered life. I had to accelerate my own plan. Time was running out, and if I wasn't careful, Alex would disappear with my future before I could stop him. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I confided my fears to Casey, who immediately put me in touch with her cousin's husband, a lawyer named Mr. Harrison who specialized in financial fraud cases. "This is serious, Mrs. Hunter," he said after reviewing the evidence I'd gathered. "What your husband is planning constitutes wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. But we need more concrete evidence before we can act." He advised me to open new bank accounts in my name only and to be prepared to freeze all joint assets at a moment's notice. "I'm going to contact the State Fraud Division first. They'll want to investigate before escalating to federal authorities." That evening, I casually mentioned to Alex that there might be delays with the inheritance transfer due to additional legal paperwork. His reaction was telling. His fork clattered against his plate, and for just a second, his mask slipped. I saw frustration, maybe even panic, flash across his face before he quickly recovered. "Oh, that's fine," he said, but his leg bounced anxiously under the table. "These things take time, right?" "Right," I agreed, studying his face. "Could be months longer." The way his jaw tightened told me everything. He was working with a deadline, and any delays were making him nervous. Within days, Mr. Harrison called back. "The state investigators are very interested. They're passing this up to federal authorities. Apparently, your husband's name has come up in other cases." I was getting under his skin, and it felt good. The next week, I played sick and stayed home from work. The moment Alex left, I searched his office thoroughly. Hidden in the back of his desk drawer, underneath some old files, I found a folder that made my blood freeze. Inside were documents with my forged signature, bank routing numbers for accounts I'd never opened, and what looked like a detailed timeline for transferring money offshore. But the worst part was a plane ticket, one way to the Cayman Islands, departing 2 days after my inheritance was scheduled to arrive. Only one ticket. Not two. I photographed everything with shaking hands, then carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. When Alex came home that evening, he was especially attentive, bringing me soup and fussing over my illness. "You're too good to me," I said, meaning the opposite. "Nothing's too good for my wife," he replied, and I wanted to laugh at the irony. If you're listening to this story and thinking about your own relationships, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had gut feelings about someone that turned out to be right? And please hit that like button if you're invested in finding out how this all ends, because what I discovered next will shock you. I installed a tiny camera in his office, no bigger than a button, positioned where it could capture both video and audio. The technology was surprisingly affordable and easy to use, a sad commentary on how common these situations must be. The footage I captured over the next few days was devastating. I watched my husband, the man I'd loved and trusted completely, coldly discussing my destruction with multiple people. In one conversation, he laughed about how completely clueless I was. "She actually thinks I love her," he told someone. "It's almost pathetic how easy this has been." Another call revealed more players in this scheme. Apparently, James Mitchell wasn't working alone. There was an entire network of people involved in these long-term cons, targeting women with inheritances, insurance payouts, or other windfalls. "Laney's the easiest mark we've ever had," Alex bragged. 3 years of marriage and she hasn't suspected a thing. "By the time she realizes what happened, I'll be sipping drinks on a beach somewhere, and she'll be lucky if she can afford rent." The casual cruelty in his voice broke something inside me. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about justice. But what I discovered about Emily's true role made me realize this betrayal ran deeper than I ever imagined. When Alex came home that night, he seemed more relaxed than he'd been in days. He'd even brought flowers, cheap ones from the grocery store, but he presented them like they were rare orchids. "Just because I love you," he said, pulling me into his arms. His touch made my skin crawl, but I forced myself to lean into the embrace. "I love you too," I said, the words feeling like poison in my mouth. That night, as he slept beside me, I lay awake planning my revenge. It wasn't enough to just protect myself anymore. I wanted him to feel the same devastation he'd planned for me. I thought about all the other women he'd probably done this to. How many lives had he and his associates destroyed? How many hearts had they broken for profit? The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. But anger was good. Anger was fuel. And I was going to need all the fuel I could get for what I was planning. By morning, I'd made my decision. I wasn't just going to expose Alex, I was going to destroy his entire operation. I spent the weekend installing additional recording devices throughout the house. Alex thought I was spring cleaning, but I was actually turning our home into a surveillance center. The recordings I captured that weekend. One call particularly chilled me. After we finished with Laney, there's a widow in Portland whose late husband left her a construction business. I've already made contact. These weren't isolated incidents. This was a business, and my husband was one of their top performers. I copied everything onto multiple USB drives, storing them in different locations. I also started uploading files to a secure cloud storage account that only I could access. If something happened to me, I'd made arrangements for the evidence to be automatically sent to both the police and local news stations. Monday morning, I called in sick again and drove to Mr. Harrison's office with everything I'd gathered. His expression grew darker as he reviewed each piece of evidence. "This is bigger than we thought," he said finally. "We're talking about a criminal enterprise." Mr. Harrison contacted federal authorities while I continued gathering evidence. The FBI was very interested in what we'd uncovered, especially since they'd been tracking this network for months. "Keep playing along," Agent Thompson told me during a secret meeting. "Don't let him know you're onto him. We need to catch them in the act of actually transferring the money." Going home that night and pretending everything was normal was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Alex was in an especially good mood, humming while he cooked dinner. You seem happy, I observed. Just excited about our future, he said, not knowing how true that statement was about to become. That night, I got another devastating piece of evidence. While Alex showered, his phone buzzed with a text from someone named E. The message read, "Can't wait to celebrate once this is over. The vacation house is perfect." My heart sank as I realized what the E stood for. There was another woman. And based on the message, she was part of the plan. I screenshot the message and several others, my hands shaking with rage. It wasn't enough that he was stealing my inheritance, he was planning to enjoy it with someone else. I had to know who E was, so I did something I never thought I'd do. I started tracking my husband. Using a GPS app, I followed his location the next day when he said he was working late. He went to the mall first, then to a small cafe I'd never heard of. Through the window, I saw him sitting across from a woman I recognized immediately, and my world shattered all over again. It was my cousin Emily. Emily, who'd always been jealous of my marriage. Emily, who'd made subtle comments about how lucky I was to find someone like Alex. Emily, who'd been coming to family dinners and pretending to care about my happiness while plotting my destruction. I watched them hold hands across the table, saw him kiss her cheek, watched her laugh at something he said. The intimacy between them was obvious. This wasn't a new development. They'd been together for a while, maybe even before he married me. I took photos until my phone battery died, documenting their betrayal. When they left the cafe together, walking hand in hand like any normal couple, I had to grip the steering wheel to keep from screaming. Not just my husband, but my own blood. That night, I couldn't bring myself to go home immediately. Instead, I drove to Casey's house and broke down in her driveway. She held me while I sobbed, letting out 3 years of suppressed pain and the fresh agony of discovering Emily's involvement. They planned this together, I cried. Emily knows all about our family finances. She probably told him about the inheritance before he even met me. Casey's face was furious. That explains the quick courtship. He didn't accidentally meet you, Emily set you up. The pieces fell into place with horrifying clarity. Emily had introduced us at her birthday party 3 years ago. She'd insisted I give Alex a chance when I was hesitant about dating someone so charming and seemingly perfect. She'd even been my maid of honor, smiling as she watched me marry a man she was sleeping with. She gave the lawyers my address, I whispered, remembering what Mr. Anderson had told me. She's been feeding him information this whole time. I went home that night armed with a new plan. If Emily wanted to play family games, I'd show her what family loyalty really looked like. When Alex asked why I was so quiet, I told him I was just thinking about my cousin Emily and how grateful I was to have family I could trust. His smile didn't waver, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt? Doubt? Fear? I hoped it was all three. I decided to test just how deep Emily's betrayal went. I called her the next day, putting on my sweetest voice. I need advice about something financial, I said. You know how Dad left me those company shares? Well, they're finally being transferred to my account next week, and I have no idea how to handle that much money. Emily's voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the excitement underneath. Oh wow, Laney, that's amazing. How much are we talking about? The lawyer says around $2.5 million after taxes, I lied, inflating the number. I'm so overwhelmed. Alex wants to handle it, but I don't know if I should put that kind of pressure on our marriage. Oh, you should definitely let Alex help, Emily said quickly. He's so smart with money, and you trust him completely, right? I wanted to vomit. I guess you're right. Maybe I should sign over financial power of attorney, just to make things easier. That sounds perfect, Emily said, and I could practically hear her salivating through the phone. "You're so lucky to have a husband you can depend on." After I hung up, I sat in my car and screamed until my throat was raw. Then I called Agent Thompson and told her about Emily's involvement. The net was about to get much wider. My own cousin. My own blood had sold me out for money. The next few days were a careful dance of pretending normalcy while the FBI prepared their trap. I had to act excited about the inheritance transfer while secretly coordinating with federal agents. Alex grew more attentive as the date approached, bringing me coffee in bed and suggesting we celebrate the inheritance with a romantic getaway. "Somewhere tropical," he said. "We could leave right after the money clears, just disappear for a while." "I'll bet you could disappear," I thought, but smiled and agreed it sounded wonderful. Agent Thompson fitted me with a wire for the final recordings they needed. "When he asks you to sign anything or transfer money, we need you to get him talking about the details," she explained. "The more specific he gets about moving money offshore, the stronger our case becomes." That evening, Emily came over for dinner, a normal family visit that now felt like a gathering of wolves. I watched her and Alex interact, looking for signs of their relationship, but they were careful. Too careful. Normal cousins-in-law would be more casual with each other. After dinner, Emily pulled me aside. "Have you thought any more about the power of attorney thing?" "Actually, yes," I said. "I've decided to do it. Alex is going to handle everything." The satisfied smile that crossed her face made me sick. But she had no idea what was coming for her. The inheritance finally transferred on a Wednesday morning. I watched the numbers appear in my account and felt no joy, only determination. This was the moment everything would be decided. Alex was practically vibrating with excitement when he got home from work. "So," he said casually, "did anything interesting happen today?" "Actually, yes," I said, pulling up my bank account on my laptop. "Look at this." His eyes widened when he saw the balance, and for just a moment, his mask dropped completely. I saw pure greed, naked hunger for money that wasn't his. "Wow," he breathed. This is incredible, Laney. We're set for life. We need to move fast," he continued, his words tumbling out in his excitement. "I've already set up offshore accounts for tax purposes. If we transfer the money tonight, we can avoid a lot of unnecessary fees and government scrutiny." I pretended to be nervous. "Offshore accounts? Is that legal?" "Completely legal," he lied smoothly. "Rich people do it all the time. Trust me, babe. Just sign." Every word was being recorded. Every lie was being documented. Agent Thompson and her team were listening from a van parked down the street. Alex was staring at that money like it was already his. But he was about to learn that some things you can't steal. "I've already prepared all the paperwork," Alex said, pulling out documents I'd seen him forging weeks earlier. "You just need to sign here, here, and I'll take care of the rest." I held the pen, pretending to hesitate. This feels so overwhelming. What exactly am I signing? "Just authorization for me to move the money to our joint offshore accounts," he said. "It's completely safe, and it'll protect our assets." Our assets. The money wasn't even cold in my account yet, and he was already claiming ownership. "What happens after the money is transferred?" I asked, making my voice small and uncertain. "Then we celebrate," he said, his eyes gleaming. "We take that vacation we talked about. Maybe extend it indefinitely. With this kind of money, we could live anywhere we want." "Anywhere?" I pressed. "Even if we never came back here?" "Even if we never came back," he confirmed, sealing his fate with those words. I looked down at the papers, then back up at him. "Alex," I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Something in my tone made him nervous. Of course, baby. What is it? This was it. The moment I'd been building toward for weeks. Why did you really marry me? The color drained from Alex's face. What do you mean? I married you because I love you. I pulled out my phone and played one of the recordings, his voice, clear as day, telling James Mitchell that I was completely clueless and that he'd be sipping drinks on a beach while I struggled to pay rent. His face went through a series of expressions: shock, fear, anger, and finally, resignation. How long have you known? He asked quietly. Long enough, I said, standing up. Long enough to document everything. Long enough to contact the FBI. Long enough to discover Emily's involvement. At the mention of Emily's name, he flinched. Did you think I wouldn't figure it out? I continued. Did you think I was so stupid that I'd just hand over millions of dollars and wave goodbye as you disappeared with my cousin? Laney, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, I cut him off. You're a professional con artist who targets women with money. Emily fed you information about my inheritance, probably before you even met me. You married me, spent 3 years pretending to love me, all so you could steal my father's legacy and run off with my own family member. Alex's shoulders sagged. I wasn't supposed to get caught. No, I agreed. You weren't. You're not going to get away with this, Alex said desperately. That money legally belongs to both of us now. We're married. Actually, I said, we're not. Remember that prenup you forged? Turns out forged documents aren't legally binding. And all our joint accounts were frozen this morning. As if on cue, car doors slammed outside. Through the window, I could see FBI agents approaching the house. Alex's eyes went wide with panic. You called the FBI? I've been working with them for weeks, I said. Every conversation, every phone call, every forged document, they have it all. The doorbell rang, followed by a firm knock. FBI. Open up. Alex looked at me, and instead of love or even hate, I saw something that satisfied me more than anything: complete defeat. He wasn't looking at me anymore, he was staring at the money on the screen, the money he would never touch. You're not the naive little housewife I thought you were. No, I agreed. I'm not. I opened the door, and Agent Thompson walked in with several other agents. Alex Hunter, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. As they handcuffed him, Alex asked, what about Emily? What about her? I asked. She's being arrested at her apartment right now. Along with James Mitchell and several other members of your little network. For the first time in months, I felt truly satisfied. The trials took almost a year, but it was worth the wait. Alex received 12 years in federal prison. Emily got 8 years. James Mitchell and the rest of their network were sentenced to various terms, effectively dismantling their entire operation. I testified at each trial, telling my story to rooms full of people who couldn't believe someone could be so calculating and cruel. But I felt strong standing up there, knowing that my courage had not only saved myself but potentially dozens of other women who would have been their future victims. The inheritance money sat safely in accounts that only I controlled. I used part of it to start a foundation that helps women who've been victims of romance scams and financial fraud. It seemed like the right way to honor my father's memory. Casey stood by me through everything, and Mr. Harrison became not just my lawyer but a good friend. Agent Thompson told me I was one of the bravest people she'd ever worked with. Sometimes people ask me if I regret marrying Alex, if I wish I'd never gone through any of it. The answer is complicated. I regret the pain, the betrayal, the the months of living with someone who saw me as nothing more than a paycheck. But I don't regret learning how strong I really am. I'm single now, and honestly, I'm okay with that. I've learned to trust my instincts, to value my independence, and to never let anyone make me feel like I'm not smart enough to handle my own life. Last month, I got a letter from Emily. She's been trying to reach out from prison, begging for forgiveness, claiming she was manipulated by Alex. I read the first line and threw it in the trash. Some betrayals don't deserve second chances. As for Alex, he tried sending letters too. I burned them unopened. I heard through the legal system that he's not doing well in prison. Apparently, other inmates don't take kindly to men who prey on women. And if you've made it this far in my story, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had someone in your life who seemed too good to be true? Trust those instincts. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable true stories like this one. Sometimes the truth really is stranger than fiction.